If you think about Georgia and autumn, probably there is one thing that comes to your mind, and this is wine, Georgian wine, exactly. So that will be the topic of today's episode of the Caucasus Podcast. I'll be here joined in a second by our guest, Nikoloz Tsirgvava from Tsereteli Wine, and he will be sharing with us what is rtveli, very important part of Georgian traditions and winemaking, how really Georgian wine is being produced also nowadays, and how the old processes from like 1000 years ago looks like. We'll be also talking about what is exactly written and what does it mean, all the labels that we see on Georgian wine bottles, and many other topics. So I'm more than sure that this interview and this discussion will be very interesting for you, especially if you are interested in Georgian traditions, in Georgian wine, or you just like Georgian wine and you want to learn more about it. So let's go to today's episode. Welcome to the podcast. I'm very glad that we have this topic today. We'll talk about something I think ultra important for Georgia, and I'm very happy that I have expert with me today in the Caucasus Podcast. So welcome to the Caucasus Podcast.
Hello, thanks for inviting. And I hope we're gonna have a fun and interesting podcast for you, for me, and for our viewers.
Yeah, I'm more than sure that it will be like that. And I have not told you that before while we were talking about today's episode, but this is the topic that many of people from our community were waiting for. We got lots of questions to talk about in
Great.
general wine in Georgia, and we are recording that in autumn. So about rtveli as well. Like to explain, maybe let's
Sure.
start with that. Yeah, let's
Yes,
let's start with
let's
what
start with 12.
rtveli is. Yeah.
Okay, let's start with 12. 12 is basically a collection of grapes. 12 begins in late August or early September, depends on the weather, how the weather goes, and depends on what the wine factories are looking for. For example, for sparkling wine, it begins in late August, and for the wines, it begins in early September. But before Tveli, there's a lots of work put into the vineyards, so the vineyards are ready for Tveli. Basically, we have to do all the necessary operations, agricultural operations for the vineyards, so the grapes are ready for the harvest. Also, we need some luck, so the weather is okay for the grapes. There is no hail because hail is the biggest problem in wine culture. And if everything goes according to a plan, in early September, right? For example, in on Monday, our factory is starting Tveli, the collection of grapes. And also, very important is to analyze the grapes before Tveli begins. You have to see what the sugar content looks like in a grape, and if everything is okay, Tveli begins.
Oh, that's very interesting. How do you do that? That you know what is the level of sugar in grapes? Yeah.
So basically, our expert team visits the vineyards. They take the grapes and they cut the stalks with grapes. They take it to our laboratory, and we do some lab tests and we see the sugar content.
Yeah. So, what should be the level of sugar? Like, if
So
that's not
depends.
the
Yeah.
secret
Again,
of your company.
no, of course no. So it depends what the winemaker is looking for. If we are looking for a dry wine, we are looking for a 21% of the sugar content in the grape, and if we are looking for a semi-sweet, we are looking for a 24%. It's at least 24 and at least 21. The higher better, but of course it mustn't go above 28, 29. It's no good.
Yeah. So I think as you mentioned right now, this is very tech savvy, yes, and state of art. I think right now you check it everything in the lab, etc. But when I think also about rtveli, this is very old tradition. Yes, to
Yes, of course.
if I'm not mistaken, like all the families together. Like previously, I'm
Yes.
curious how it was. Also, maybe from your perspective, maybe your family
Yeah,
as well.
so basically it's a very ancient tradition. The whole family gathers at the vineyard when the tour is about to begin. They take the boxes or crates, you may call it. They cut the stalks which hold the grapes. They put it into the crates, and when the crate is full, they put it into the truck. And when the truck is full, it goes to the factory. And after the truck is gone, after the harvest is finished, the family is having a supra. Supra is a feast, and they are having a feast where they invite all the workers who worked at the vineyard, all the family members and friends. They join the supra and they start the feast, and they basically celebrate the harvest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, is it like any like specific supra that you have, or anything in particular happens that is just for this particular one type of supra, or is it just like, let's say, a
No,
standard one?
it's
If you can, yeah,
a
there is
stand.
nothing exists like a standard probably supra, depending
In
on the
Georgia, there
region.
is no standard. It's
Yeah.
basically it's one of the biggest feasts of the year, biggest supras of the year, where almost every family member and the friends gather. And there is a tamada, a toast master, who gives the toast. And people celebrate, have fun, say good words to each other, drink lots of wine, of course, and that's it, basically.
Yeah. Right. So, this is something that's very, I think, family based as well. But just for our listeners, I will check it with you whether you like from your perspective this is true. I observed that it's when you think family, like in different countries, not in Georgia, you may think like immediate family, like your mother, father, maybe brother, sister. But from Georgian perspective, the family you think about lots of people, yes, lots of
Of course,
as well
yes,
friends and
yes.
aunts, etc., cousins.
Yes,
Yeah, so
of course,
there's like,
of course.
yeah.
That's right. That's correct. And also the friends, like even sometimes friends of friends, they come and join us
Hmm.
because Georgia, we love the guests, we love the feast, we love this time to have the time with our close people.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's like, for example, in Poland, when we have any harvest, we don't have wine and vineyards, of course, but with apples, for example, there is like you go from one family to another. So, for example, in your family there is rtveli, and then the next week you go to other family,
Yeah, yeah,
and you help
that's true.
them, then they help
That's
you,
true. That's
etc. Is
true.
it
Yes,
similar? Yeah. Oh, nice. So, what
that's true.
happens next? Maybe,
That's
yeah, go
doing
ahead.
it in a Georgian traditional way.
Mm.
What happens next? Okay,
Yeah.
so after the truck is loaded, it goes to the factory, and when it arrives into the factory, the truck is loaded off, and these grapes are put into the pressing machine. And this machine presses the grapes, and it takes the juice to the, and then the juice is taken to the stainless steel tanks or to qvevri, depends again, and the fermentation process begins. Uh, but here we have to discuss. Georgians do semi-sweet wines also. They do dry wines, and also traditional Georgian wine is qvevri wine. So
Mm.
for red dry wines, the juice goes with the skin into the tanks. For the white wines, the juice goes into the tanks, and for the qvevri wines, doesn't matter white or dry, the skin, the stalk, and the wine juice goes into the qvevri, and the fermentation process begins.
Mm. So maybe we can add also for some of our listeners and viewers what is qvevri, because not everyone
Yes,
may have
of
yet
course.
not yet participated or been to winery. So then,
Yeah,
yeah, how would you
qvevri,
explain it?
qvevri is, I think, the most important part of the Georgian wine culture
Mm.
or equipment, I may call it. The qvevri is recognized by UNESCO as a Georgian authentic traditional winemaking equipment. It's a clay pot where the fermentation process is done. And in qvevri we put wine juice, skin, and the stalks together, and we wait for about 3 to 6 months for the wine to be finished.
Mhm. So then the next, is it like the next year? Then you can have Supra after Rtvelju with the wine from the previous years. Is it like that, or it should stay longer? Than not, or it depends really on the type of the wine. Yeah.
It depends on the winemaker, but basically 4 to 6 months. It is with contact with skin and the stalk, and we're waiting for the wine to be finished. After, by the way, this stalk and the skin, it's not a waste. In Georgia, we have the chacha. It's like grappa basically, and we take the chacha out and we put it into this tank. We add some water, and after some time, we distill chacha.
Mm. Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, I looked it up because I'm not a specialist in this part of Georgian language, like connected with with wine. But I think the chacha it also means the skin of the grapes that is distilled as well as the drink, let's say alcoholic drink. Yes, this is
Yeah,
like
yes,
both. Yeah, yeah. That's I think for many non-Georgians that may be shocking. This is not only the alcoholic drink you drink, but also it comes from the part of of the fruit that it was
yeah, of course.
prepared with. Yeah, yeah, that's great. It's just like the process that you mentioned, because is it also something that you do not only in the wineries but in the like the companies, but also the way that people do it, so-called homemade wine? Because sometimes when, for example, foreigners are in Georgia, they come to the restaurant and they see also there is written like homemade wine, and I always think that this is maybe a little bit of mystery what can be under this name, and whether this is the similar process. If you could
Uh,
share, like, what do you think about it? Yeah.
Yes, so like as Georgia is a very ancient wine country, basically in Kakheti region and in other regions also, everybody has their own little vineyards where when they collect their wines and they press the wines and they also make the wine at home. And basically, and most of the people who make the wines at home, they make it in qvevri. They have little wine cellars and they make qvevri wine. And in most of cases the wine is very good quality and it's very enjoyable because I think the Georgians have winemaking culture in their DNA.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's I think that my impression is that it's like something that every Georgian knows. That's how more or less it looks like. This is, as you mentioned, like something in Georgian DNA, because it's very ancient traditions of, in general, anything connected not only with wine, but I would go further with the grapes. I was thinking before our recording, before our meeting, like, what is one of the most important fruits in Georgia? I would say grapes, because from grapes you not only make wine, but also, as you mentioned, chacha. But there is also lots of sweets that are made with grapes. So there is
Yes,
like grape, yeah, the culture of vineyards as well, and grapes is very very important, I would say, in the tradition. That's very fascinating. Is there any like from vineyards and also growing the grapes, are there any conditions that like someone may take into consideration? Something that is, we started with the, you mentioned the weather to for Tsereteli, whether the grapes are already ready. But are there any things, like, if anyone from our viewers or listeners are thinking right now, this is a great idea, I will come to Georgia and I will start my own vineyard and I will buy. So, what would you tell to those people? What are the things,
what
that important from Georgian perspective?
Alright, so yeah, grapes are most important fruit in Georgia, and 90% of the good quality wine is a grape. It starts from a grape. No matter what technology you use, no matter how new your equipment is or how great your winemaker is, if the grape is not in a good condition, you won't get the great wine. So to get the great quality grape, you need to take care of the vineyard, and the vineyard needs to be taken care of almost every day. So whoever thinks to come to Georgia and have and maybe build or grow a little wines themselves, they have to understand that they have to be in place. It's not something like you can just you can put the wines in ground and you can leave the land, go somewhere else, and someone will take care of. Nobody will take care of instead of you. You have to be always. You have to check your vineyards, take care of them, and all the agricultural operations must be done according to a timeline. Because if you miss something, some percentage of the grapes will be lost, or in the end, you won't get the quality wine.
Yeah. So, from also your company's perspective, how many people is needed to run it? Let's say to make it all work. Like you can, if you could share also how big maybe your operations are from that perspective for people
Uh,
to understand, like
yeah.
imagine what we talk about when they are, for example,
So
going to
so
rtveli somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, so our factory, Tsereteli Wine Factory, it's a mid-sized factory, and we have 50 people working for us. But depends on the season. When the harvest comes, of course, you need more people who work for the collection of the wines. So we hire some people, some local people to help, so they can help us. And sometimes even 100 people are working at a specific vineyard.
Mm.
Depends on the time, depends on the size of the vineyard.
Yeah, so that's a big group of people. And then after you mentioned the process after those 3 6 months, we get wine, let's say, yeah. But as you mentioned, there are different types of wine, because we talk like right now wine as a big group, but it's not like that. There's not just the colors as well.
Yes.
But if you could like advise, like from Georgian wine's perspective, if someone thinks Georgian wine, how they should like educate themselves, divide it, like with which wine, with in which occasion maybe you drink, or maybe with which sort of food, any tips and tricks there for like
Yeah,
someone who starts the journey.
it's a good question, but for me personally, it depends on my mood.
Oh,
It may be
I was not expecting that.
yeah,
That's
it may be
awesome.
summer, it might be hot days, and maybe I want something cold, semi-sweet white wine, for example. If it's winter, maybe my mood is more towards the dry wine. It depends. It really depends. But for the foreigners, who people who come to visit Georgia, who wants to understand Georgian culture, I think I recommend trying qvevri wines, because you can try dry wine finished in oak barrels in any other country, but qvevri wines made by Georgian traditions can only be tried in Georgia. So for all the foreigners, I recommend trying qvevri wines. And it's qvevri wine is always dry. It's always dry wine. You can't make a semi-sweet qvevri wine. It doesn't exist. And the qvevri wine is characterized by lots of tannin, and it's basically it's lots of tannin. It's a little bit stronger wine, and it's a little bit funky. Depends which winemaker produces the specific qvevri wine.
Mhm. So, um, then is it like impossible from the production perspective that if it's in qvevri, it can just be dry, like there is not another way to produce this wine. Yeah,
No,
so that's
only dry.
basically. Yeah. So is it fair to say that the traditional ones, like if I want to imagine Georgians like 1,000 years ago, they would drink mainly dry wine there? Like if someone wants to, like, I don't know, go back in time, is
So
it
yeah,
like that, or is this like not something that we
to
don't know
to
what they do
explain
there?
to explain this, what's the semi-sweet wine and how it's made. Semi-sweet wine.
Uh-huh.
So we receive grapes, we press the grapes, we get the juice. It goes into a stainless steel tank, and after few days, it's fermentation starts, and
Mm-hmm.
we check for the sugar content in the wine every day. Every day we check for the sugar content,
Oh,
and
yeah.
when we have the sugar content, say 5% residual sugar, and winemaker is looking to have the residual sugar 3.5, he takes this wine into the other stainless tank, which he refrigerates. And this process goes until the wine reaches zero Celsius temperature,
Mm-hmm.
reaches 0 Celsius, and the faster it reaches, the better. And when the residual sugar is at our desired level, we stop the fermentation, and we can already put it into the bottles.
Mm.
So to make the semi-sweet wines, we need the refrigerator. So that's why lots of home wines are dry and quality wines, because they don't have the same resources as, for example, the wine factories. So, say 1,000 years ago, of course, it was dry wine.
Oh, oh, that's awesome. I have not even imagined that this is the process. Thank you for explaining that. I think not only for me but also for our listeners and viewers, this is like aha moment. Like it changes, like it gets us understand how the process looks like. So we can get it more clear, like how this production
Also,
looks
also,
looks
also
like. Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
back to the point of 1,000 years ago, why the
Yeah.
queries were special and why the queries were used, because queries are put underground. So they
Yes.
are underground, and why? Because the temperature underground can be controlled better. What I mean, when query is underground, there are no spikes in temperatures, either above or low, and the spikes are not good for the wine. And when the query is underground, it's more or less controlled. There are no spikes, so and the wine turns out to be a good quality wine. That's what was the philosophy behind the query.
Yeah, that's very logical. Then it's much easier to control it both in winter and in summer. Yeah, so that's
Yes,
much
yes,
easier to control how the process looks like. Yeah, so when, for example, someone will I heard stories like that. Someone was like finding or buying the old house, and in the cellar or in the basement they were finding some so old very under the floor, for example. Yes,
yes,
because that's
yes, yes.
standards, let's say, in the past times in the houses. Yes, that's really really fascinating. So we were talking about different also like sweet, semi-sweet, dry, but also when we look at the bottles already prepared, like say
Yes.
end stage in the we are going to the supermarket or the shop or the winery, and we look at labels, what is written. So how to figure it out, which one, because besides mentioning whether it is red or whether this is white, or also like sweet, semi-sweet, dry. We also have additional names. Like Kinsmaruli, for example. This
Yes.
is something that is one of the most popular
Yes.
popular one. So how would you explain, like for the other people, what to do
Yes.
with those
It's very
names?
it's very easy to explain. To explain Kinsmaroli, for example. Kinsmaroli is a special microzone in Georgia, in Kakheti, and in Kinsmaroli one is Saperawi variety. But Saperawi can be grown in whole Georgia, but only Saperawi grown in Kinsmaroli can be Kinsmaroli wines. It's a special microzone, little area in Kakheti, and on this area there is type of weather, or maybe we can say sunlight, that gives the grape the amount of sugar, the right amount of the sugar for this semi-sweet wine. And that's why it's special microzone. So when it's written Kinsmarauli, we can conclude that it is from the small area called Kinsmarauli. Also, Mukuzani, for example, it's a red dry wine. It's also from a special microzone, also Saperawi, but from the Mukuzani
Mm-hmm.
area.
Mm. Saperavi, this is like one type of grapes. Yes, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, right?
Saperawi is one
Just
of the most popular type of
yeah.
grapes in Georgia. Also Tsereteli, and those two are
Uh-huh.
the most popular. And
Mm-hmm.
but Saperawi grown in Kinsmarol and in Mukuzani is in a special microzone.
Oh. So that's I was always wondering, to be honest, that you are like for the first one who explained it to me as well, like from that perspective. That's awesome. And when someone wants to also from because we will link as I mentioned in the intro, we will link also all the links to your wines that you produce. So if you could walk us through also, when someone goes to link which wines from your offer, etc., we can find, and how to like which one to choose based on the preferences. If you could have like the initial tips and tricks when someone goes
Uh,
for your products, yeah.
so it depends again on the taste. If person is looking for the oak finish, for example, looking for European style dry wine, I would recommend Mukuzani, which is our Tsereteli Mukuzani is very popular now in Poland. For example, we are selling it
Hmm.
very well. People like it very much. If someone is looking for a semi-sweet wine, I would recommend Twishi, for example. It's also microzone in Georgia, but it's the west side of Georgia. It's a very small area, and it's white semi-sweet wine. It's really good. Also, our one of the best-selling wines in Poland. And I think Polish market, they prefer semi-sweet wines more than dry. So we try to push semi-sweet for the Polish market more than the dry ones.
Oh,
And now,
and
by the
how?
way, we are also entering the Ocean supermarket chain from September. You can find
Yeah.
the our wines under the label of Mosaic in Ocean supermarket chains.
Oh, awesome. Is it just in Poland, or you can find it, because we have also listeners and viewers, I would say from all over the world, but also from European Union. How is it with other countries? If you could share, like,
We sell
is
our
it
wines in
similar? Yeah.
we sell our wines in United States, in Poland, in Ukraine, also in England, and also in China.
Oh, really? How is it the Chinese market? I was like, oh, you got me.
Chinese
I was
Chinese
shocked here. Like, yeah.
Chinese market is very diversified, I shall say, because there are people who really know what they are looking for. They really know they are like wine enthusiasts, and there are
Mm-hmm.
people who don't really know about much about the wine, and they prefer semi-sweet wine.
Yeah.
So for Chinese market, it's a good market because whatever we produce, like dry, semi-sweet, the customer can find it and they will enjoy it.
That's very interesting, whether how our preferences look like also in different countries. Because when I talk, for example, or I watch some films and compare it to like how the wine is also shown in different situations, like we also vary from country to country. So we can take some example also from Georgian culture, as you mentioned, that you decide on which wine depending on the taste, depending on the mood, on the weather. That's to be honest, I was always taught that you have to pick the wine based on what you eat it with, like with this meat this wine, with this cheese this wine.
Yeah,
I have never thought of choosing it based of how do I feel today. That's completely a game changer for me. It's much
yeah.
easier.
Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course, when you go to the restaurant, of course you have to choose it according to the meals you are served. Uh,
Mm,
with the meat, red wine
mm,
goes well, of course.
mm,
With desserts, maybe red semi-sweet wine. It depends
mm,
basically what you.
mm.
But I was like talking about when you are at home chilling and you just want
Yes.
to drink. You just want to drink a wine, have fun. So that's what I meant by the mood.
Yes, yes, that's I think that often happens as well. Like we don't only drink in many countries, not only like going to the restaurant, but it's also part of our having a feast or celebration party at home. And then you can, like, after during the weekend you meet with your friends. This is a little bit Georgian style, but I think the rest of the world has lots of to learn from Georgian way of celebrating think, also with the wine. So that's a great advice. I think it's a little bit like it gives you a little bit of freedom when you are at home. At least like, I look at it like that. When you mentioned, I don't feel so I have to follow the rules. I can have some freedom in choosing the wine. That's awesome. Yeah. So when someone thinks about wine in general, we have covered several of topics about how to produce it. What is the main question that we get in autumn always? So rtveli and all the celebrations and around it. But do you think, is there anything that when someone goes or starts the journey with Georgian wines, they should all additionally know, like the final advice from your perspective, or like a fact that we it would be good for us to know from the tradition of joining Georgian winemakery? Anything to add before we will
Georgian
wrap up? Yeah,
tradition.
yeah.
So maybe just state the fact that the Georgia's archaeological evidence suggests that the Georgia is the oldest wine producing country, and it says that it's more than 8,000 years. Georgia is producing wine, and the qvevri. So basically, I would suggest everyone to try qvevri wine. Sometimes for foreigners, sometimes at the beginning it's a little bit strong, little bit different because they are not used to the qvevri flavors. But after some time, you get used to it and you really enjoy qvevri wine. But you have to try and find your specific qvevri wine, which one you like, and then you understand what's the true identity of qvevri and how to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Is it on the bottle? Would it be like someone goes to the supermarket in their country, or it will be also written that it is qvevri, or it is more like go to Georgia and
No,
try it there? Yeah.
no. Of course, it's written on the label. You will see written on the label qvevri.
Mm-hmm.
In Poland, we sell the qvevri wine under the Tsereteli label, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always written qvevri. And also on the back of the label, back of the bottle, there's other label that explains from which region is this grape from, how this wine was made, what were the processes this wine went through, and etc. So you can get the information on the bottle also. It's very useful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great tip, great advice for everyone listening and watching us right now. So read the labels right now after our today's episode. You know what you will be looking for. So people will know what to read it, how to understand different words, and that's, I think, a great guide. I would say, how to start a journey with Georgian wines and tradition of Georgian winery. That's awesome. Thank you very much for
Thank you
our
very much.
episode. Yeah, if you have any questions to our viewers or listeners about Georgian wine, so give that send to us that in the comments. So we have a section for that, and if you are looking for the wines that we have discussed today, there is a link in the show notes as well. So you may go to the websites and find the wine if you right now you know that you wanted, because you tasted it, like hearing about it made you want to try it. So you have a link to go and to check it out. Thank you very much for our
Thanks one
discussion.
more time for inviting me, and I hope the viewers will enjoy this podcast.
I hope as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I hope that you learned a lot from today's episode, as well as I have learned really a lot, and I enjoyed our conversation with Nikoloz, the expert in the field. And I'm more than sure that just browsing and looking for Georgian wines and looking at the process will be much easier and understandable for you, and you will use the new knowledge into it. And remember that if you like our episodes of the Caucasus Podcast, let us know by, of course, liking it. Remember to subscribe, and you also not only can watch it, but you also can listen to it in the podcast application, the one that you like the most. And of course, just Thank you very much for all the patrons and all the supporters of the Caucasus Podcast. So if you also want to support creation of the podcast, of the Caucasus Podcast, the link for that, so to buy virtual coffee or virtual hinkali in our case, is also in the description of today's episode. And if you want to learn more about Georgia, go to our website as well and look at the options for the free webinars, for other podcasting, also episodes, and the course that we have about modern life in Georgia. The link for all of that you will find in the description of today's episode. And thank you very much for today. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.